a few more, but he couldn't remember their names. He think he saw he saw somebody by the name of Aoyama there, but he couldn't remember. He got back in his seat as President Mike started explaining the test, and then they took it. As Izuku finished the test, handed it into President Mike in under a minute, President Mike gasped and said, 100%. No one's ever done that in under a minute before. Except as he thought back to arguably the most lazy, but one of his best friends, and said, except maybe him. Everyone else said, that's impossible, he had to have cheated, and Izuku just looked back and said, I didn't cheat, I just used more of my brain than you guys did. As everyone yelled and started throwing things at him, Izuku said, this just proves how animalistic you all are. As everybody stopped and shut up, Izuku went back to his seat and waited for President Mike to explain the robots. As President Mike was explaining, the Tenya boy got up and said, Sir, if this is a mistake on UA's fault, then I think that I would not like to go here. There is 4 robots on the screen, but 3 on the paper. Is this a mistake? As he then pointed at Izuku and said, You've been muttering about sweets and all this the whole time. Do you even want to be a hero? Or are you just in it for the money or something? Izuku looked at the boy and said, nothing. As he just looked away and said, well, President Mike was probably going to explain until you interrupted. If you could actually see, he was about to speak, and then pointed at President Mike as his lips were about to move. But obviously, even with those glasses, you're too blind to see. My true justice will prevail, not your false justice of you fake heroes. As everyone began throwing things at him again and again and again, he said, see, you're just proving my point of how easily tempered you could be and how, well, better I could do in a fight than you. As Izumi and Katsuki said, as Izumi and Katsuki recognized him as Izuku. Katsuki recognized him as his tormentee and Izumi as her disgusting brother. And she said, yeah, what are you going to do about you, otaku? And Izuku said, you'd be surprised at what I could do. I'm not just smart. And as Izuku sat back down, President Mike began to explain the robot, now known as a 0-pointer or an obstacle. And Izuku just sighed, hoping that he would have to run into it because it sounded annoying. Izuku went to the ground testing site where he saw the Tenya boy, and this girl he remembered as a family member of a construction worker that once worked for the Todoroki household as Ochaku Uraraka. She seemed nice enough, and she seemed nervous, so he was going to go calm her down. As he noticed the Tenya boy approaching him, he thought without thinking that the boy thought he was going to interrupt Uraraka to catch her off guard, and how the boy was going to catch him off guard from calming her down. So Izuku simply summoned up his chakra that he had recently finished the series Naruto Shippuden, and did the body flicker and teleported to her and said, Uraraka, don't worry about it. He'll do fine. As she turned over to see him, she said, how do you know my name? He said, well, you worked for the Todoroki household once. I'm friends with a boy there by the name of Toya. And she said, oh, well, Thanks. As she now had more fire in her eyes and looked less scared. Izuku went back, and as the tiny boy started approaching him again, the tiny boy said, "Were you trying to distract her? I bet you were. I'll get you expelled for it," Izuku said, as the tiny boy was about to talk mid-sentence. "Obviously, you can't see through obvious details. I was going to calm her nerves. Look at her. Look at the fire in her eye after I talked to her." Tanya looked at her and scowled and said, "Yeah, fine, but if you do..." Izuku cut him off and said, "Well, what will you do? You've seen I'm faster, I'm smarter, and I'm stronger. You haven't seen that part yet, but you will." As Tanya scoffed and said, "Yeah, right, like you're faster." Izuku just looked at him with a grimace and said, "You'd be surprised," with a raspy voice. As the gate opened and President Mike said, "What are you all waiting for? There's no countdown in new battle. Go, 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 go." Izuku blasted off with the Adola burst. And then, after destroying a few 1, 2, and 3 pointers with some of his chakra punches and kicks and some jutsu, as well as Shino's Adola burst and a few other things like his Demon Slayer weapon form and One Punch Man's One Punch and the sword that Rin obtained in Blue Exorcist, he was finally ready to relax. As he was sitting on top of a building listening to Bluebird, one of the best Naruto intros in his opinion, he felt a rumble. He looked up and saw the 0-pointer. He was about to jump off to the next building until he saw Uraraka stuck under some rubble. He remembered her quirk was that she could lift things. Like she had 0 gravity effect on things, so he thought she'd be fine until he saw that she was stuck, and he remembered that her quirk had a very, very not pleasant effect on her. So he decided to go save her. As he was running in, people looked at him like he was a madman until he transformed into his Titan form. Then they looked at him with fear, some with shock, and some with fire in their eyes, wanting to see if they could best him. As he wrapped his armored Susanoo around it, everyone who had that fire immediately lost it, looking in fear and terror, thinking that if they even tried to, he would destroy them. As with one slice of the 0-pointer, it was immediately destroyed and all the nearby buildings. As Izuku went out of Titan form and turned off his Susanoo, he went to go check on Uraraka to see if she was okay. "Hey, Uraraka, you okay?" She said, yeah. Thanks." As Izuku lifted up the rubble with his immense strength. It was amazing to have his quirk. As Izuku was walking away, he heard gasps and whispers, and then he knew that at least somebody he knew would send that video to at least Katsuki or Izumi, or maybe even the school would send it to his family to show them how well their son did. As Izuku was walking out and walking back home, Katsuki ran up to the so-called nerd, or otaku, weeaboo. He was actually called those, and only those. He was never called his real name after they figured out he was quirkless. Katsuki caught up to him and said, "Hey, nerd, where'd you get that? Fight me right now." Izuku said, "Alright, if you wish so, Katsuki." As Izuku summoned Rin's sword from Blue Exorcist. It was arguably one of his favorite weapons in anime, besides Hedon's scythe, but he didn't feel like using that. Katsuki looked at him with a smirk and said, "You really think you could beat me with just a sword?" As Izuku unsheathed the sword, blue flame ears started to grow on his body as a tail sprouted. And then he grew fangs, and his ears became more pointy like an elf's. And Izuku's voice deepened and became even more raspy and said, "Katsuki, you really think you could beat me? Too bad I have to show you the hard way. How I'm gonna beat you." Haha. As Izuku jumped up and swung at Katsuki, Katsuki tried to explode it with an explosion, but Izuku's sword sliced through it and cut Katsuki's hand. Katsuki said, "Ah, you nerd. Ah, you damn nerd. I'm gonna destroy you." As Katsuki charged at him, Izuku decided to put the sword away for now and actually get serious about this. As Izuku sidestepped him faster than Katsuki could even react, he built up the muscles that Saitama had, and once he clotheslined Katsuki, he heard a loud break, and when he looked at his arm, it was covered in blood, and when he looked down, Katsuki's face was obviously gonna need a lot of surgery, and even then, his mother still probably wouldn't recognize him. As Izuku was heading back home, he got a call from Izumi, and she said, "What did you do to Katsuki, and how did you even do it? He's better than you in every way, and you don't even have a quirk." And then Izuku said, "Well, maybe you and your dumbass boyfriend should check out the footage from the school, or maybe they already sent it to mom and dad, and they'll send it to you. I know they sent it to Katsuki for sure, or at least someone did, because I'm gonna say they were allowed to have phones in there, in case they wanted to record their feeds and show it to their parents." So, Izumi, she checked her phone. She got a video, from her, like a text from, her mom, which she had it saved as mommy. And there was a video of Izuku, shifting from using Saitama's punch to chakra to Rin's sword to the ghoul-like tentacles, and he would use Kuro Sensei's speed to just blitz through robots. He used Shinra's Adola Burst, all that good stuff. So she was looking at it in shock, and she asked All Might if he thought it could be a whole bunch of quirks from All For One. And he said All Might was a little bit smarter. The only thing is he had to choose quickly, so he chose Izumi because he was okay, well, I have to choose quickly, and okay, she has a pretty powerful quirk and would be a pretty good successor, so I'm choosing her. So he said no, that and she told him all about Izuku, told him what the doctor said, and he said it's probably his quirk. You should ask him about it when you get home. As Izuku was already home chilling in his room, when he got a knock on the door from his so-called dad. His dad said, "Where'd you get that quirk? I bet you stole it or something, or somehow." And Izuku said, "Well, I'm just a late bloomer." As he went back to watching a new anime for him, he was watching Black Clover. He loved Asta and his personality, but was sad that Asta didn't have magic. Like how he thought he didn't have a quirk at first, but he knew Asta would probably get better. So, he decided to tell his parents. He said, "Hey Dad, go get Mom." Dad said, "Whatever." Izuku. Still, they wouldn't call him son. They're too scared that if they did, they'd get punished by, like, his wrath or something. When Inko came, she said, what do you want, Izuku?" No longer calling him brat. He said, "Well, hold up. I have to see what they call the quirk again. Anime GIF. Okay. He's gonna call it. Yeah, he's gonna call it. He's gonna switch between calling it a few names. He says, "Well, the name I chose for my quirk is called Anime Gift." And they said, "Well, what's that?" He said, "Whatever anime I watch, I could choose a power from it. The only drawbacks is it can only be from an anime I've watched, and I get the personality of the user of said abilities, and stuff like that." So, yeah. And they said, "Well, what can you do?" I bet it's not even that much. As Izuku transformed one of his hands into the scythe that Soul could from Soul Eater, as he punched the wall to the outside, and it broke to pieces. He summoned Rin's sword, and as soon as he unsheathed it a little bit, blue flames appeared all over his body and the sword. He grew blue cat-like ears that were blue flames and a tail. Once he started to use some of his better abilities, like Shinra's Adola Burst, which allowed him to use fire and fly in the air, and then Chakra, which he used as walking upside down on walls and spitting a water ball at them when his dad tried to prove how better his fire was. That's when they realized that their son had probably a more powerful quirk than their daughter, even though their daughter still thought she had a even better quirk, and that Bakugo was just surprise attacked that he also had a better quirk. As soon as they left, Izumi came strolling through the door as their parents shut the room to their door. She said, "So, loser, what's your quirk?" Izuku said, "Well, my quirk is called Anime Gift, or as you'd call it, Otaku Power, which I actually think is a pretty good name." Oh, damn. I just realized I don't know what his hero name is going to be. I'll let you guys decide that. Ooh, would he be a hero or a vigilante? That'd be interesting. But so, he says, "It's called Anime Gift. Any anime I've watched, I could choose a character from that anime and get an ability of theirs. The only downside is it has to be from an anime I've watched, and I get a bit of their personality trait." And she said, "So, who were you being back at during the test?" He said, "You wouldn't even know, so what's the point?" She said, "Well, just to beat you, I'm gonna watch a whole bunch of anime." And he said, "Well, wouldn't that make you an otaku?" She said, "No, I'm just doing it for research so I can beat you and your stupid quirk." He said, "Well, during the test, I was being L from Death Note, who's the smartest detective in their world. And during the robot fight, I was being multiple people. Soul from Soul Eater, Saitama from One Punch Man, Rin from Blue Exorcist, Naruto, Sasuke from Naruto Shippuden, and Shinra from Fire Force. I was also being Eren from Attack on Titan. And I'm probably gonna watch a lot more anime, so you're gonna have to study up, sis. As he no longer called her Izumi, she looked down in anger and in regret. Did she regret treating her brother badly? A little bit, though she probably wouldn't admit it. Did she think that she could beat him? Absolutely. He was just some lame otaku loser. Only if she knew that One for All wasn't all that good. Well, of course it was powerful, but not as powerful as Izuku's quirk. The more and more socially outcast he came to watch anime, the more and more powerful he was. So, as Izuku went back to his room to watch some more anime, he got a text from Toya. Toya said, "Tell him about the quirk." Izuku said, "Yeah." Toya said, "What do they think?" Izuku said, "Well, parents at first thought it was some lame, stupid quirk, until I showed them that I was better than them in every way." Toya said, "What about the sis?" Izuku said, "Still think she's better." And Toya said, "Why though?" Izuku said, "Let me use that ability that I used at the test." Toya said, "L." Izuku said, "You got that right." As Izuku went over to her door and knocked on it, she opened it and said, "What do you want?" He just said, "I want to check on something." She said, "Fine." As he began looking around, he noticed her behavior. She was hiding something. And I'm going to say that she mastered, she got, she created, no, she hasn't created shoot style yet, but she has, what was it called again? Basically, she could use One for All at 5% without breaking her body. Oh yeah, full cowling. So she could use full cowling without breaking, like at 5% without breaking her body. And so he notices, like when he looks at her, he sees that she seems more hyper, as probably a course of the new One for All running through her veins. He also noticed over the I forgot to mention the encounter with Toya was before the 10 months of training. He also noticed after the sludge villain incident, when he was walking home, he's seen her talk to All Might, and so he didn't hear what they were saying. But so over the 10 months, she went to the beach a lot. Supposedly All Might was seen there a lot too. He's seen her acting differently. He's seen her become more like secretive about something, which she didn't have a lot of secrets, but the ones she did have were important. So he put together, along with the fact that All Might has been doing less and less stopping crime over time. And the fact that one day when he was walking by the beach, he seen Izumi talking to All Might, and All Might turning into a skinny guy, but Izumi didn't seem surprised that All Might could pass down his power, and that he was losing it, and he passed down the power to Izumi. As he looked at her and said, "Are you hiding something, sis?" She said, "No. Why would I?" He said, "So what's the quirk name?" She said, "Phoenix. You already know it, you idiot." He said, No, the one you got from All Might." And she said, "What do you mean? You can't pass down a quirk. Are you stupid?" He said, "Yeah, right." As he just left, he didn't feel like arguing with her anymore. Although it was fun to agitate her sometimes. So, he left, and he went back to his texting conversation with Toya. Toya typed, "So, what did she say?" Izuku said, "Well, I'm pretty sure that she got the quirk from All Might, and, that she's hiding it because it's a secret or something." Toya said, "What makes you think that? You can't pass down a quirk."